Welcome back, everybody, to Weekly Briefing and your favorite part of the show, our panel discussion. Well, on Monday, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg admitted in a letter to the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan that the Biden administration pressured Facebook to censor information about online content related to COVID-19 and the mRNA vaccines. Zuckerberg said in the statement, quote, "I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it." This comes 2 years after Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas testified before the Senate saying he did not pressure social media companies to take down content related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Take a listen.
We have example after example of this administration coordinated, apparently, according to a federal court, by your agency, pressuring, coercing social media companies to engage in censorship. Is that constitutional?
That is unequivocally false.
Is what the emails show.
It is unequivocally false, Senator.
So, Donna, we just heard there that what was happening was not happening. What do you make of that?
Well, we knew it was happening, but you know what? I'm going to take back that pressuring because they colluded. Zuckerberg colluded because he wanted to. They wanted to censor people.
So
they
he knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing. He could have been outspoken a long time ago and blew the whistle and says, listen, this shouldn't be happening. And he could have went to members of Congress and let them know. But he didn't because he wanted to work with the government. And now that he's caught, now he wants to come clean and say, you know, I was wrong. I shouldn't have allowed them to pressure me. No, they didn't pressure him. He thought that he was picking the right side, and he found out that he lost.
So he's just being a chameleon, basically. Paul, this is interesting. I think Donna may have put her finger on something because why is Zuckerberg coming out with this letter now? Is he reading the tea leaves? Is he seeing the Republicans, Donald Trump may win in November, the Republicans may take the Senate and feels like he needs to rehabilitate his company's image and his image before this election?
Well, I don't know whether he can rehabilitate his image. I mean, it's pretty bad as it is. But there's a legal component to this, and that is there's now a lawsuit by RFK Jr. suing the Biden administration for censoring his charity that had information about the COVID vaccine and so forth and so on. And just the other day, the court said that RFK does have standing to bring it because earlier the Supreme Court threw the case out saying, well, no one had standing. So they never reached the merits. So you could be looking out now for the Biden-Harris administration to be held legally accountable for violating everybody's First Amendment rights. It's not only the vaccine that was going on, but it was Hunter Biden's laptop. They said, oh, it was Russian disinformation, et cetera. So look for some good legal decisions coming up here.
So, Kingsley, this is interesting. It may be related to litigation, but also this letter comes now after this endorsement of Trump from RFK. It comes after the endorsement by Elon Musk of Mr. Trump. It comes after the endorsement by Tulsi Gabbard of Mr. Trump. Is Mr. Zuckerberg getting ready for a potential endorsement of Mr. Trump?
Absolutely, and this has me wondering, you know, what kind of information he's seeing on his side at Facebook in terms of analytics, what kind of polling he might be seeing that the Democrats aren't necessarily reporting. I think that Trump is much more popular, like in 2016, than the polls are showing. And I think smart people like Mark Zuckerberg, businessmen, are really starting to see that, and they want to make sure they're on the right side of history. Of course, you know, it's great to have an apology, but we also have to have accountability because it's not just the vaccine. He was censoring the picture of President Trump's assassination attempt just a month ago. So there is a lot that Mark Zuckerberg has done to hurt conservatives and to hurt the MAGA movement, and we need to have accountability for that. You know, people talk about retribution and revenge. It's not revenge to hold people accountable. The system requires it. If you don't have a rule of law whatsoever.
Famous last words and a prediction from Kingsley. An endorsement by Zuckerberg of Mr. Trump. We shall see. Well, speaking of Mr. Trump, the former president was indicted again by a federal grand jury on 4 charges related to the 2020 presidential election. This comes after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled last month that presidents have immunity from prosecution for their official duties in office. The superseding indictment removes some allegations, but contains the same 4 criminal charges. Attorney Josh Hammer says Smith has lost all credibility.
I don't understand exactly what Jack Smith is doing here other than trying to literally just steal an election for his particular side. I will finally note that it is also in direct opposition of longstanding DOJ protocol to not bring a prosecution like this so close to an election. Even the perceived intent, the perception of affecting the outcome of an election, according to the DOJ's internal standards of operating protocol, even that should be enough to not bring a prosecution like this. But Jack Smith is a one-size-fits-all hitman.
So, Paul Kamenar, you are a lawyer, you even play one on TV. What the heck is going on here? Do people, has Jack Smith lost his mind? A second indictment?
Well, he's saying that he had to do this because the Supreme Court ruled in the immunity case that President Trump is immune from his official acts. So there's going to be a hearing on September 5th about where do we go from here. And so what Jack Smith tried to do was backpedal and try to get ahead of the curve by telling the Judge Chutkan here in D.C. who's handling it, look, we're not going to have a mini trial, which he wanted to do. He wanted to have a mini trial before the election to see what is official acts, what isn't official acts. So he realized he had some problems. So he trimmed down his indictment to take away official acts, such as President Trump talking to Jeffrey Clark at the Attorney General's office saying, well, that's official. He even went so far as took out the word president out of the indictment. He said he was just a candidate. I mean, can you believe it? But the other thing he's got a problem with, you said there's 4 counts. They are still in there. 2 of those counts are obstruction of a proceeding. And the Supreme Court in another ruling said for the other January 6 defendants, no, that statute doesn't apply to you. That applies to destruction of evidence in a court and like shredding documents and so forth. So what Jack Smith did said, aha, here's where the documents were shredded or whatever. The congressional staffers had to take the box that they had the electoral votes and temporarily remove the box from the podium and brought it back. Oh, there's the obstruction of documents. I mean, this guy's really out of his mind.
Out of his mind, out of his mind. I'm wondering, Donna, though, is this sort of jello and pudding with a lot of people now because they've been hearing about indictment here, indictment there, and there's been the case in New York, and then there's a case in Florida, and there's a case in Washington. Is this going to have any impact potentially on voters, or is it already baked into the cake?
You know, actually, it's going to have a positive impact for the Trump campaign because people are looking at this and going, I could be next. And they're sitting there using the Department of Justice to weaponize it against a sitting president, but against ordinary citizens. I mean, I still cannot remove myself from the fact that the BLM riots cost billions of dollars and not a single person went to jail. But you have January 6ers sitting in prison. This is about one political class going after another group of people who don't agree with them. And there are people in this country, elite liberals, who think that they are right, they know what's best for the American people, everybody else is dumb, and we all have to fall in line and do what we're told.
I hate it when Donna holds back and does not speak her mind. It's just very frustrating. Kingsley, I mean, does she have a point? Does she have a point with people thinking this is more of lawfare? Is that message getting out to voters across the nation?
I think absolutely. You know, sometimes I wonder if Jack Smith isn't on the MAGA campaign's payroll. Maybe he should be, because he is perhaps our greatest asset, going out there and using the DOJ, as Donna said, to weaponize the law against President Trump as a candidate for office. I think really just gives up the ghost, right? It shows that this is a biased prosecution, and it is not in the spirit of our American founding and our judicial system. The Supreme Court was very clear in Trump v. U.S. Trump has presidential immunity, yet Jack Smith wants to again try to bring the same bogus charges against him. And I think, you know, when you talk to Republicans across the country, they're really fed up with this, and they want to fight back. So what we can do is call our congressmen, because ultimately they have the power of the purse. They're the ones that are funding the DOJ and funding this prosecution that Jack Smith is leading. We can tell them no more.
One more thing I want to add about this is interfering with the election.
Sure, quickly.
Is that the Department of Justice has this rule: you don't bring these charges within 60 days of the election. Here it's like 70 days, and that's why Jack Smith says, oh, I'm still within the window. But the early voting starts
Well,
in the next week or two.
It starts, yes,
Yeah.
September 20th in a couple states, I think. So, yeah, that's kind of out the window now. Well, anyway, any famous last words from Kingsley there? Contact your congressman. Bogus charges and contact your congressman, according
And
to
I
Kingsley.
can tell you, liberals are upset about this too. A lot of liberals are upset about what they're seeing.
Well, we shall see. We shall see. Meantime, when we return, in the latest leak to the media, Kamala Harris's campaign said that their candidate no longer supports electric vehicle mandates. Is this strategy working for Harris? Find out after the break. Don't touch that dial.